seniors. So we can go ahead with this. Unfortunately, sir, I am having a chikungunya since 4 days.
Oh.
So it was a very difficult to wake up and sit here for a while. So Apurva will be handling most of it. It will be very difficult for me to. Good morning, Apurva. Good morning, Dr. Roma. I think you are there. I can see because my video is not working, so I can see everybody. Nobody can see me like that.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir. I have joined.
Welcome and thank you for joining on the short notice. She is a senior pathologist, GI pathologist with the one private institute, Sterling Accuris. She will helping us with the pathology, go through the pathological steps when it is right. So, sir, what is the format actually we are going to do is like this. The first one of the Apurva, our resident, he will give the outline how the patient came and what initial investigation were done up to the radiological investigation. Then the radiological resident will give his presentation on the what was the finding at the radiologist and how they reached their diagnosis. Dr. Ilaben will answer the question if you have any questions, and the resident will also. After that, Dr. Sanjay will take over, or will you do it last at the time of Sneric, Sanjay bhai?
Right.
So will you take in between or at the last at the snaring time?
Ready.
Okay, anyway, no problem. So we'll go and see as it comes. And then there will be a role of biopsy pathologist and again at the end. And then the conclusion. Good morning, Abhilasha Ben.
उसी रूम में अगर
Sir, we'll just go through the basics.
Okay, Apurva, shall we start now?
Yeah. First of all, sir, this is a clinopathological correlation for a patient of duodenal angiomyolipoma. It will be presented by Dr. Amrit Maheshwari from General Surgery, Dr. Madhavi Pandya from Radiology, and Dr. Kesha Rashani from Pathology. They are all third-year residents at BJ Medical College. I am greatly thankful to the faculties who are going to join us. First of all, Dr. Abhay Dalvi, sir, he is busy with the elections and everything, but he has promised me to be on board for the time. Our own head of the department and Deputy Director of Government of Gujarat, Dr. G.H. Rathod, sir. Dr. Prabol Niyogi, who is himself a professor of surgery at Motilal Nehru Medical College, Allahabad. Dr. Ramaraj Mukherjee should be joining us at any moment.
Sir, I've joined it.
Sir, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. And Dr. Daivat Vaishnav, he is a GI surgeon at Zydus Hospital, Ahmedabad. Special thanks to our radiology department, Dr. Ila Desai, he is a professor of radiology at BJ Medical College, and Dr. Abhilasha Jain, assistant professor of radiology.
Yes, sir, I have joined.
Good morning, Abhilasha Ben. Pankaj here.
Good morning.
Okay.
For pathology side, we have Dr. Roma Patel. She is a consultant GI pathologist at Sterling Accuris, and our own endoscopist, senior endoscopist, Dr. Sanjay Rajput sir. As he has said, he'll jump in whenever he is just given the inkling.
Apurva, I'm interrupting you, but sorry, but I must tell for Sanjay bhai that he is an honorary member of our Surgeons Association, just for knowledge of everybody. And for us, he's a boon that whenever we say that, sir, this has to be done free, he never hesitates to do anytime and anything. Thank you, Sanjay bhai. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Please.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I think, sir, we'll start then.
Okay. If all the faculties say so, we can start. And give again the outline the people who join little later. Okay. Apurva. So what we are going to do actually.
Yes. So this is a clinopathological correlation. We have a case of patient with duodenal angiolipoma. The thing is that the patient came to us with anemia and melena. Yeah, and we investigated the patient. Specifically, the patient came to us with radiological examination. They were very supportive, and their first diagnosis was lipoma or a duodenal polyp. Dr. Sanjay Rajput did, because the swelling was in the third part of the duodenum, Dr. Sanjay Rajput was roped in for the endoscopy purpose. The first thing he did was take a biopsy. The biopsy showed an angiolipoma, and then, so before, without going for surgery directly, please. So we then went for snaring of the polyp. That was again done by Dr. Sanjay Rajput sir, and at present you will get the present scenario of the patient also. He is absolutely fine. Dr.
Follow-up scopy has already done by him. So that's the end of the whole thing. And I think IHC is also done. Amrut?
Sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. IHC was also done.
Yes. So that we have a complete scenario. That's why it took a little longer, but we have done it. Okay. Apurva, please carry on. Apurva, start. Let us start.
Yes. Okay. Amrit, start.
Good morning to all faculty. I'm going to present a case of duodenal angiolipoma. A 62-year female patient presented with complaint of abdominal pain and passage of black color stool since 3 months. Abdominal pain was intermittent, dull aching, epigastric in epigastric region, and aggravated after food intake. Patient has associated generalized weakness. There is no history of nausea, vomiting, hematemesis, anorexia, weight loss, or chronic NSAID use. Patient was admitted at private hospital for similar complaint, investigated and managed conservatively. There is no significant family history. On physical examination, patient is well built and nourished and vitally stable with pallor is present. On per abdo examination, there is no any positive finding on inspection and palpation auscultation. On per rectal examination, black tarry stool was present. Sir, we have investigated. Patient came with outside investigation of hemoglobin 6 gram per deciliter, RBC 2.2 million, WBC 9,000, platelet 4,07,000, hematocrit 28, with peripheral smear showing normocytic hypochromic RBC and no premature cell was seen. Patient's INR was 1.08. On stool RM examination, the stool color is brownish with semi-solid consistency. There was no gross blood or mucus is present. Occult blood is present. RBC is nil. Occasional pus cell with 1 to 2 epithelial cell was present. Patient's USG abdopelvis was suggestive of no abnormality seen on USG. CECT abdopelvis is suggestive of patient actually came with outside CECT report, which is suggestive of evidence of pedunculated intraluminal fat density area in third and fourth part of duodenum, appear static in all phase, measuring 5 by 3 by 1.5 centimeter. Possibility of intraluminal lipoma. There is no evidence of abnormal bowel wall thickening. Multiple gallbladder calculi was seen. There is no lymphadenopathy or ascites noted. So, sir, for this we went for CT review and put a differential diagnosis of gastrointestinal stromal tumor, benign hyperplastic polyp, hamartomas polyp, neoplastic polyp, duodenal neuroendocrine tumor, duodenal lipoma, and duodenal lymphoma. The supporting feature for gastrointestinal stromal tumor was it can present with obscure GI bleed and submucosal pedunculated lesion was present. But the contradictory feature of this is there is no contrast blast on CT and lesion is intraluminal. And benign hyperplastic polyp, hematomatous polyp, and neoplastic polyp, all three present as a pedunculated lesion on CT. But benign hyperplastic polyp is common in colon and they rarely have a size more than 1 centimeter. And hematomatous polyp usually have a syndromic association such as with the Peutz-Jeghers syndrome. Neoplastic polyp patient doesn't have any history of weight loss or anorexia. Duodenal neuroendocrine tumor are hyper intense on CT, but there is no related symptom of NET and no metastasis on CT. Duodenal lipoma, fat density lesion is seen on CT, which is a supporting feature. But duodenal lipoma are very rare in presentation. If they present, they are common in young age, and they are usually asymptomatic. Duodenal lipoma is present in old age, but there is no enlarged lymph node on CT, and they rarely present with melena. So for this, we went for radiological CT review of the patient.
Amrit, very good. Great. So this is the very important slide. I request faculties, would you like to comment, surgeons particularly, looking at this, share their experience and would like to say anything about it. Prabal sir.
You want a sort of opinion, or was it a question answer session for the resident?
No, sir, opinion, because we want to say that this was we were suspecting. So how do you feel that the lipoma is the common, so common, because that's why the radiologists were very sure it was lipoma, but the lipoma is very rarely in an old age. That's what the problem is rightly written. And I have never come across any lipoma in a fourth part of duodenum. It was practically junction of third and fourth part of duodenum.
Suppose a patient who comes with a obscure GI bleed with anemia. I totally agree that these are the things that have to be excluded, and keep one diagnosis and then exclude it. And of course, the final answer is endoscopy. From here, of course, we cannot say what it is, because duodenal, I have seen quite a few cases in duodenal growths. That can be of many types, from benign to malignant. The spectrum is there. It's a huge spectrum. And
yes,
it's very surprising that in duodenum, you can find so much of spectrum of benign and malignant disease. So I think we have to just keep this in mind and
yes. And sir, the basic reason patient was comparatively older, 62 years of age, had a significant amount of the bleeding. We had to give BT before any procedure, and patient was very fatty. I think patient was around 85 kg, Amrit, something like that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Patient was very fatty. And when we were in resident, we were taught that duodenum hardly ever any malignancy. But that has now changed. And we see the plethora of malignancy in that. So frankly speaking, my patient, I was suspecting there has to be some kind of malignant, because the bleeding suspected this. Lipoma was not in our mind, though radiologists were there. Because my question is it a common to have a lot of bleeding with the lipomatous lesion?
Another thing in our part of the country that I have come across, I personally, we have a case series of about 12 to 15 cases. And apart from all these that we have mentioned here, another common finding that we have seen about in 2 to 3 patients out of those 15, it has been tuberculosis, which is also not there in this list, I can see.
Yes.
You have to, in India, you have to consider tuberculosis any sort of obscure.
Sir, they do not present as polyp.
They will not present as polyp.
Yeah, they do not present as polyp.
Yes.
So this was a polypoidal lesion.
Yes.
This was a polypoidal lesion.
Dr. Roma, would you like to say anything? Roma? I think she has gone.
I think, no, sir. Yes, sir. I'm here.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, please.
The differentials are mentioned according to the second, third and fourth part of duodenum. But if it is in the first and second part of duodenum, then Brunner's gland hematoma is also a differential, because it will present as a polypoidal mass. It contains the adipose tissue, but there is in between Brunner's gland can be seen histologically. So we can separate whether it is just lipomatous or it is just Brunner's gland hematoma.
But the vessels are more in angiolipoma rather than Brunner's gland hyperplasia.
Yes, sir. Yes, I'm just gross differential.
Yes, sir. That's what for residents' benefit. I am asking all the questions.
Yeah,
so they should.
Endoscopy also they looks very different.
Yeah.
Brunner's gland hyperplasia, you can see multiple hyperplastic polyp-like lesion, while this was an uniform lesion.
Okay.
So is it a common to have that a terminalium similar lesion, hematoma lesion?
Sometimes we have, at least we have seen 3 of them. At least we have seen 3 of them.
We are treating one case
so
and
rare. In 20 years, 3 lesion, it is rare.
We will make it 4 because we are treating one such case and we are in real trouble because we have done all. We have done upper GI scopy, we have done lower GI scopy, we have done perioperative scopy and found the lesion, done a resection. Bleeding has not stopped yet. I don't know what to do. that is the bleeding is real issue.
No,
Yes,
you can do radiological embolization and it will stop.
it is not seen in a angio. That means when you have done CT angio, there is no blush or flush was seen. So what to embolize an issue? We will come to that. We'll come to management. That what is the role of angio embolization in this patient particular? Okay, I think anybody would like to, Dr. Ramanuj.
I think Daivat is
Yeah.
also there.
Sir, I think the approach that we are taking. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Sir, it is good enough that we have a patient now. If we recollect the facts, I was listening to the discussion. It was really a good logical discussion that we are planning. We have a patient who is obese. Number one. Number two, the patient has presented with an upper GI bleed and is anemic and has been resuscitated and has been investigated. Now, sir, I think the way that we are proceeding is good enough. And definitely, as a surgeon at this age, I will think of a tumor rather than a polyp, because the age of the patient is middle-aged, definitely. Hence, the sequence of placing GISTs in the third part of duodenum is a very logical option.
Yes.
The rest of them are very uncommon encounter for a surgeon. And as the gentleman has placed that they should be here. And I think that we should be approaching, we'll be talking about radiology, and then
Yes,
after
sir.
that,
We'll have a
endoscopist,
discussion.
we'll have a discussion. I think,
Thank
sir,
you,
we are
sir.
in the absolutely right path.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Right.
Okay, okay, Daivat.
Sir,
Fine.
want to one
Yes,
thing.
please.
I think so. We're discussing what neuroendocrine tumors in duodenum are also common, so that we are.
Yes, we have. He has put it at the fourth line. Duodenal neuroendocrine tumor, hyperintense lesion in CT. We were suspecting. Frankly speaking, as a clinician, my diagnosis first was GIST, second was NET. That's what I said, and third is a malignancy. We never thought of a lipoma or that. That is what my logic was. It is there. Fourth, he has written it. Okay. Okay, Amrut.
Sir, now the radiological finding will be
radiologist. Madhvi? Yeah,
Yes.
Madhvi?
Yes, sir, I've joined.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
please,
share
the
your
screen.
slide.
And if you can't share, then he will start from masterclass.
Yes.
Good morning, faculties and colleagues. Today I'll be discussing the radiological aspects of duodenal angiolipoma. I have, from the plates, I have sought out two images. One is sagittal section and one is axial section at the level of third and fourth part of duodenum, which is showing this hypodense lesion, which is very characteristic of a fat density, which is noted, and it is a venous phase, as you can see by the contrast filling in aorta and inferior vena cava. Mostly in any lesion like lipoma or angiolipoma or angiomyolipoma, there will be a part of soft tissue component which will be seen, which is actually like fat is very well visualized in this section, but any soft tissue component could not be commented upon. Mostly characteristics of the lesion would be, as it is lipoma, that will be fat in the lesion, and it will be seen as hypodense lesion, as I said, and angiolipoma will have vascularity, so it will show a bit of contrast enhancement as well. Any intestinal angiolipoma, large size of tumor, more than 4 centimeter is the criteria, which is more prone radiologically to show bleeding, ulceration, and any other complication which occurs. Depending on the size of the lesion, it can act as a lead point for intussusception. But as duodenum is a fixed, partially fixed organ, so duodenal intussusception is quite rare. Possible radiological differential diagnosis, I have put angiolipoma, polyp, hematoma, interluminal hematoma, which is also being presented as upper GI bleed, then bezoars and GIST. Angiolipoma is, as we discussed, it would be hypointense and it would not be associated with any syndromes like tuberous sclerosis. In polyp, as the previous slide suggested, that it would be presented as as a syndrome with Root-Chenner syndrome, or it would be a neoplastic polyp, but there would be a soft tissue density, not the fat density. Then hematoma would be hyperintense. It will also be presented as bleeding, but hematoma would be hyperintense on CT scan. Then bezoars, it is also hypodense, which is black, but it will show the swirl pattern of gas and solid material, intervening solid material, and it would not be pedunculated. For few and bezoars are more likely to be more than one, because few of them will be in stomach, few of them will be in small intestine if it is not obstructing. Then the gist would be more likely to be extraluminal and exophytic masses rather than pedunculated intraluminal masses, which would be associated with Carini striate. I have put some pictures for the better understanding. This is intraluminal mass, this polyp, as seen by arrow. Then the second is bezoar, which is hypodense, almost looks like lipoma, but on CT scan, the density would be different. It would be the air density rather than fat density. And the third is gist, which is compressing the bowel lumen. It is coming out of the bowel anterior, and it is showing some enhancement. Other modalities which we can go for the lesion is UGI-scopy, which is not actually radiological, but it will help definitely. Then ultrasound, most of the time, if we are not looking for the lesion, it is a higher chance to get missed on the ultrasound. But ultrasound will show hyperechoic intraluminal mass. Then other chemical shifting MRI also can be done, in which in-phase and out-phase imaging is routinely done, and in out-phase imaging there would be marked signal loss in comparison with the in-phase imaging. And dynamic contrast MR study, as due to vascular component, it will show progressive enhancement of the lesion. As angiolipoma is a lipoma family of a tumor, and it is not associated with tuberous sclerosis, and it is more commonly reported in colon rather than in the small intestine. It is presented with abdominal pain and anemia and melena due to upper GI location. Mostly it gets confused with the other lipid containing lesions, as angiolipoma is quite rare, and lipid containing intraluminal lesions differentials we can put is lipoma, liposarcoma, which mostly be metastatic liposarcoma instead of primary liposarcoma of small intestine, lipoblastoma and angiomyolipoma, which is extrarenal angiomyolipoma variety of the tumor. There is also a chance of stomach lesion from fundus, which comes down to the duodenum and which leads to obstruction or any other symptoms. And there is no reported sarcomatous transformation of angiolipoma in literature is seen. These are the references.
Okay, thank you.
One question, sir. One question. Either Dr. Madhuri, Dr. Abhilasha, whether CT is the right line of management, or have we done MRI? That would have been better.
That is a nice question.
Sir, actually CT would be better, because fat density is, I guess, shortly we can say on CT as well as on MRI, but CT would be better. Matlab contraindications of the CT would only be the negative points like contrast, radiation, and cannot be done in pregnancy. So if the young female, the radiation dose will be higher, and so that's why we perform MRI. MRI has no other significant role, plus the motion artifact from the bowel will partially obscure the lesion. So CT is a good line of investigation.
Okay, madam, just one question on the CT. Hi, hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Right. Number one is that how to differentiate, because you have already told that again, so I will request you to repeat how to differentiate it from a neoplastic growth arising from the duodenal wall, like an adenocarcinoma.
Okay, sir. Adenocarcinoma would be circumferential irregular wall thickening. instead of polypoidal growth. If it is the carcinoma is arising from pre-existing polyp, it would not be having fat density. It would be having necrosis or soft tissue density within, rather than a fat density.
Okay. And number two is that along with, so we agree that this is a polyp because you see contrast all around it and it has a fat density.
Yes.
Now,
Sir,
what
yes.
about surrounding nodes, as has been pointed out? Like in India, a Cox lesion or a granulomatous lesion is always a very common encounter.
Yes, sir. So the in the provided images to me, there was no lymph nodal enlargement or any bowel wall thickening was present. Otherwise, the lymph nodes would be bulky lymphadenopathy associated with central necrosis, which is not seen. Central necrosis would be central hypoenhancing area and in the lymph node. Mostly para-aortic region lymphadenopathy would be present.
Okay.
in
Number
mesenteric.
third point, madam, because the patient presented with an huge amount of GI bleed, do you think that in CT angio would have been a good addition to this CT
Yes, sir.
scan?
To pinpoint, it can pinpoint the location. The subsection angiography can pinpoint the location of bleeder, and sometimes if the vessel is quite large, interluminal coiling can also be performed.
No, because see, as a surgeon or as an GI or as a gastroenterologist, the main issue is that this is in such a part of the body that is not a
which,
very easy surgical access. Third part of
yes,
duodenum is
yes,
not
sir.
a very happy area for a surgeon to go in. So the only problem is that the SMA is exactly lying, the superior mesenteric artery is lying exactly below the artery, and usually this type of duodenal tumors will derive their blood vessel from either from the pancreatic or from the first jejunal arcade.
Yes,
So that becomes a very difficult thing. Do you think it can be an angiodysplastic mass?
Sir, angiodysplasia would be present as intramural blood vessel enlargement rather than
Okay.
the polypoidal mass. That's the cases I have seen. It is in the wall of any bowel, which shows the dilated blood vessels,
Okay.
which bleed as clinically present as any bleeding or melena or hematomasis. So mainly it is in the wall, not in the lumen.
Lastly, madam, the last thing is that now differentiating, as you have very rightly said about a GIST, but we once had an encounter with an abnormal pancreatic rest. That means a pancreatic tube,
Yes.
a part of the pancreas was outside the pancreas and incorporated in the wall of the duodenum. What is your opinion on that? Because they are usually benign lesion, doesn't have any problems except for bleeds.
Yes, sir. Actually, the pancreatic rest are interluminal. It is just a filling defect in any routine barium procedure we do, and we on basis of enhancement pattern of pancreatic rest, which would be similar to pancreas, like arterial hyper enhancement and venous. It would not be washed out on venous phase. So
The
we
size
can
of the
take.
lesion also matters because
Yes, sir.
pancreatic rest does not goes beyond 1 or 2 centimeters.
Yes.
Absolutely right.
It
Yes.
is more likely to be in stomach, I guess, rather
Yeah,
than
it is
small.
there in duodenum also. They have a different locations. Pancreatic rest can be found out in different locations.
Okay.
Dr.
Okay.
Abhilasha ma'am, would you like to comment anything?
She is doing very well on her own. Madhvi, you are doing good.
Yeah, Madhvi is fantastic.
Fantastic. Okay, sir. Shall we go further or?
Ma'am, you are not audible. Abhilasha ma'am, you are muted. Please unmute your audio. I can see you speaking,
Yes.
but I cannot. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So presence of fat density in CT rules out all the other differential diagnoses actually. And if there is a presence of enhancing solid component in between the fat density, then the possibility of angiomyolipoma or angiolipoma should be considered instead of purely fat density. If there is any enhancing soft tissue component, then we can think of angiomyolipoma or angiolipoma, otherwise instead of pure lipoma. And presence of fat rules out all the other differential diagnoses we have discussed.
Okay, I think fair enough. So, Apurva.
Actually, yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir, the only thing I would, Elaben is already there, but for some reason, she is not able to hear us.
Okay.
Sorry, ma'am, for that. And Dr. Gunawant Bhai is busy with the assembly. So he said as soon as he is free, he'll join us, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Amrit, now what do we have?
Okay.
So the keeping the radiological finding and the duodenal lipoma in our mind, sir, we have option for further investigation to either go for upper GI scopy with enteroscopy, because the lesion is in third and fourth part of the duodenum. Usual standard upper GI scopy won't go up to the third part, so we have to go for with enteroscopy, or we have option of endoscopic ultrasound, MRI, and a colonoscopy. Sir, we went for upper GI scopy with enteroscopy under Dr. Sanjay.
Wait.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, wait. Now let Sanjay Bhai say. Rajput sir,
Yeah,
we already
I can go
done
up
the
to
scopy.
jejunum, no problem. With upper GI scopy, with careful endoscopic examination, you can see the up to the jejunum, first part. So,
Okay.
Okay.
So, sir, can you elaborate about the patient? We'll show the video.
Because there are 2 or 3 questions. Our senior surgeon, Dr. Siddesh, has also asked a question. You have answered me. Dr. Siddesh, would you like to say anything? You are most welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. I think you were on the board, so I will take advantage. Sir, please.
Thank you for including me, sir. But as you see, endosono going to be one of the important investigations, sir.
Yes, sir.
I think this lesion can.
I think we have lost it.
Yeah,
sir,
we have lost the audio.
endosono will help you in the matter that it will definitely rule out other malignancies, and it will show the fat density very clearly. It is very hyper intense lesion. So endosono is definitely helpful, but when radiology has already diagnosed it as an lipoma, most of the time endosono is not required. So it is an additional investigation. If you have the additional investigation with you, you can do it within 2-3 minutes and just rule out the malignancy, and you can see the layer of origin in endosono from where it is originating. Otherwise, endoscopic ultrasound in a radiologically proven case is not very helpful.
If there would have been a doubt, then it is a different thing, Sanjay bhai.
Definitely, because it will add the cost also. It will add up the cost. Yeah.
And we do not have that facility at our institute. We have to rely on others. Obviously, it is a burden to patient because our patients are very poor.
It will increase the time, cost, and otherwise, then again they will take biopsy from EUS, because most of the time they will increase the time duration and make the things difficult for the treatment.
Okay. So what is the bottom line here is till now is that the radiologists were very confident, as we have already discussed with detail, that it was probably a benign angiolipoma, that is, or lipoma. So we referred the patient to Dr. Sanjay bhai for further management, what we should do. Sanjay bhai, please.
Yeah, so when the patient was referred, we were very sure, because on CT image it was very clearly benign, and on endoscopic image also we could definitely see that there is no malignant potential in this lesion, because the lesion was very smooth with ulcer on the tip of the lesion, and on narrowband imaging also there were no suspicious signs of malignancy. So it was around 5 centimeter lesion in the D3 D4 junction, and where we could take the biopsy with the help of endoscope only. We did not require the enteroscope. So most of the time D3 D4 we can reach with the help of endoscope. So it is not required that you have long enteroscope to be taken for the this, and scope can be passed into deep jejunum with careful maneuvering. So the same endoscope we can use it for the jejunoscopy if you don't have the enteroscope. But if you want to go deep into the jejunum, then you require the enteroscope. So we have taken the biopsy and sent the patient back because we wanted to be sure before removing. And
yes,
on first endoscopy also we could confidently tell the patient that this can be removed endoscopically. You will not require surgery. because it was a pedunculated lesion.
Yes, Dr.
So-
Neogi.
So you can see on the
Dr.
endoscopic report only advise endoscopic loop placement and removal.
Yes. Yes, Prabal sir.
Dr. Rajput, when you did the endoscopy, it was a clear-cut benign lesion with a polypoidal polyp. Why did you need to take a biopsy from there? Were you suspecting?
Because they wanted biopsy. They wanted biopsy.
Why did you not go in for a straightaway for a definitive polypectomy rather than take a biopsy and make the tumor heal?
Polypectomy require plan, because straight away you cannot snare these, as Dr. Chatterjee also pointed out, these are vascular lesions. So whenever there is a bleed in D3 or D4, we have very limited options. So we have planned that we will put a snare we will put a endo loop.
No, that is all right. But I was just wondering, why did you do
No,
a
no,
biopsy?
we are at fault. We are at fault. That's why we have kept it.
The basic unit wanted biopsy first, and then
Yes.
we were planning surgery.
I don't think it was required. Like,
Yes.
They planned
And-
surgery. They planned surgery for that, but I told
Prabal, we are at fault. We are at fault. He is not at fault. The reason was, that's why we have kept this. This was also a new experience for us. And as I said initially, we are very skeptical of being a lipoma,
They
because the
wanted to
radiologists were very
as a
sure,
whole.
and but we were very sure, we were inclining toward the gist. We were wrong. So we did not want to take chance that it may bleed, and the patient was very fatty, and to do any emergency surgery or that will be very difficult. So we wanted to be absolutely certain. But now when the next case comes, we can be better informed. That was the reason. The Sanjay was ready to do the snaring at first time, as he has already written there. But it was on insistence of the surgeons that it may be gist. So better take a biopsy and confirm it. That was the reason. We were wrong, but that was the reason actually we did that. You are absolutely right. Your point is very well taken. Andre,
Rajput
do you
sir,
have-
you said, sorry sir.
Now please continue.
Rajput sir, you said something about being benign on narrow band imaging. There are no features of malignancy. Can you little elaborate that for our residents?
Check out the surface pattern, pit pattern, as well as the vascular invasion. Because most of the time, benign and malignancy, we do not require biopsy. If now we have endocytoscopy coming up in a big way. Endocytoscopy is a new tool on which where you can take the, without biopsy also, you can say that this lesion is malignant or whether this lesion is benign. That is, you can see the histology with the help of endoscope only on your screen, with the artificial intelligence coming in a big way in endoscopy also. So you may not need to take the biopsy before removing, as Dr. Prabal has said, that you can tell the patient with 99% confidence that your lesion is benign and we can remove it right now. Or whether you require surgery, you may not need to take biopsy also, and this lesion is probably malignant and you may not need biopsy, and you can take away that lesion without biopsy and reduce the cost as well as time required for the biopsy.
Sir, I want to know something from you, sir. Dr. Rajput, I am aware of this. If the narrowband imaging can only tell you about the mucosal vasculature, I think. So could you just elaborate on this? Can it tell anything inside the lesion? Can it help?
Narrowband imaging as a whole comes from Japanese people, and they are very expert in doing this because there are early malignancy in stomach, as well as they are doing the endoscopic resection or endoscopic submucosal dissection for the malignancy, early malignancy. So they are very prone to do this NBI, and this comes from narrowband imaging comes from Japan only. So narrowband imaging will definitely tell you the invasion, because there are multiple vasculature which is irregular vasculature on the polyp itself. If there is an ulceration, it definitely tells that there is already submucosal invasion. So they will not remove the lesion if there is vasculature disturbance, there is pit pattern disturbance, and there is ulceration on a polyp. So on polyp also, they don't do EUS for this also, because on only NBI they will tell that this patient has invasive malignancy and this requires surgery. So they do not take biopsy also now. They will do endocytoscopy, they will do NBI and send the patient for surgery.
Sir, suppose in this case, you have this lipomatous lesion, and on endoscopy, you found area to be ulcerated, the mucosa.
Ulcerated area should be there, because
It was there, sir. It was there.
It is there. So ulcerated lesion does not matter whether, but the surface pattern is very regular. The surface was very regular, which is there in the lipoma, and the ulcer was at the tip of the lesion, which is very sure. So in GIST, you will see the large ulcer, but here only on the tip of the ulcer lesion. On GIST, you will see a deep ulcer with the surrounding ulceration and a deep mucosal deep ulcer inside with a vessel base inside.
Okay. Anybody else would like to? Amrut, do you have a picture?
Endoscopy
Sir, we have the video. Yeah, we have the video.
Sir,
Amrut,
sir,
upload the video. Yeah, start.
Sir, we will share two slides later, sir.
You can share, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So you
Sir,
will.
patient managed symptomatically till the biopsy report came. 2 units of PCV was given and the hemoglobin increased to 9.6 gram per deciliter. Patient's biopsy report was suggestive of deep ulceration and the inflammatory polyp. So we again go for endoscopic removal of the now we have an option of either we give conservative management, endoscopic removal or exploration. Since patient is symptomatic and presenting with melena, we can't give a conservative management. And on exploration in a age of 62-year female, it will be a very
major surgery.
Surgery with
and the site will turn up into a Whipple's negative duodenectomy.
It was anyway. It was not indicated because the only reason for biopsy where we were suspecting either GIST or NET, then there was only indication of doing surgery. Otherwise, endoscopy was the only answer. So pathologist Amrut is coming this time or later on?
Sir, after this, we went for ureoscopy with guided removal of the polyp. So the video.
Yes.
Yeah, upload the video.
Sir, as you can see, the surface pattern is very regular.
Yes, sir.
It's a large polyp. So it is always better in D3 and D4 to apply a coagulation method before removing this type of polyp, because if it bleeds heavily. So we tried to apply this endoloop, which is a secure method of reducing the chances of bleeding during and post-op also. So this endoloop was successfully applied. And then with a large snare, 3 centimeter large snare, we could go around the polyp. It is very important to catch the polyp and then see the base. Because what mistakes is happening is that the snare has caught the endoloop also.
Oh.
So it will take a little bit longer time to cut, as well as there are chances of risk of bleeding. Once you cut the endoloop, the protective mechanism goes off. So you have to be very careful and slow in cutting. There is no hurry in this type of lesion. There is no emergency. So you should do very carefully, very slowly, and see the site of bleeding. If it starts bleeding now, you have to apply another loop and then do the cutting. So you have to be very slow in cutting and be careful. See, now it has cut, but a part of lesion is still remaining. And the endoloop has gone. You cannot see the endoloop now. So there is a small amount of bleeding from the tip. So we cauterize that, and then successfully hemostasis was achieved, and then patient was subjected for repeat endoscopy after 1 month. And the repeat endoscopy after 1 month was showing healing of the base of the lesion. We have removed so many polyps from D3, D4, and with the small bowel endoscopy, we can reach up to even the ileum from above. So we have vast experience of duodenal angioma, vascular lesions, even the NETs we have removed from D3, D4. We have jejunal bleeding, we have stopped with the help of small bowel endoscopy. And we have done hepaticojejunostomy. In hepaticojejunostomy patient, we do the endoscopic removal of stones from hepaticojejunostomy with single balloon enteroscope. So we have 5 cases where we have used the enteroscope and remove the hepaticojejunostomy patients, multiple stones. It requires 2-3 sessions, but it is very helpful and it prevents surgery, which is very, all surgeons know that hepaticojejunostomy recurrent stones are very painful surgery. So we can help in those patients also with the help of small bowel endoscopy. And now we have a Spirus endoscope, which is motorized endoscope, where we manually we can do the enteroscopy as a whole up to ileum in less than 1 hour from above, from the mouth, and from below we can reach up to jejunum in less than 1 hour with the motorized enteroscope. So enteroscopy was the thing which was missing in our armamentarium because of lack of experience, because of lack of timing, because it was too long, almost 2.5 hours it was taking for doing a single enteroscopy procedure. So now we have a Spirus endoscope with the help of which we can reach enteroscopy and we can reach up to ileum from above and from jejunum from below. So it is a new addition to our endoscopic armamentarium.
So motorized means it has
Motorized means
power
will
electric
take your endoscope with the help of that motor.
Okay, it will go inside.
Yeah, scope will move around and you don't have to pull and push.
Okay.
And it is a control mechanism which will stop if there is increase in the pressure in the duodenum or ileum. It will stop by itself and it will give you a warning sign that you have to perforation are also less.
What was the approximate diameter of the stalk in this?
Yes, sir.
This stalk is more than 3 centimeter. So you have to apply endoloop. It is more than 2.5 to 3 centimeter. So wide base stalk.
Wide base.
Okay, Dr. Rajput, just a nice procedure done, sir. Sir, just as a surgeon, I am just 2 queries. Sir, in the colon, if you have a sessile polyp and you can do a snare polypectomy, sir, we know that bleeding chances are about 1 to 5%. Sir, in upper GI lesions, sir, what is, because duodenum third part, as a surgeon, I am always a bit worried because bleeding or perforation in this part is always very dangerous thing.
Sir, I know, but nowadays we deal with all these duodenal perforations with Ovesco clips, and which is very safe. It is very safe.
Sir, what is the chance of this bleeding and perforation after this upper GI polypectomy? Because
upper GI polypectomy less than 10%, but with the help of this Ovesco clip, you can control both bleeding as well as perforation. Right. So you have to have an Ovesco clip ready whenever you are doing this big polypectomy.
Okay, right.
So with
sir,
the
and after this procedure
we have done around 20 perforation closures in duodenum.
Okay.
None has required surgery.
Nice enough, sir. Then surgeons are getting obsolete now.
Okay. No, not getting obsolete, but we are getting more and more bolder with the help of this Ovesco clip and pad.
Okay, right.
Suturing, endoscopic suturing, because before 10 years, I was also worried about perforations and bleeding. But in the last 5 years, at least we have not sent a surgery for perforation. In Dr. Pankaj Modi must have known me since last 20 years. But since last 5 years, sir, we have not referred a single patient for at least duodenal perforation.
Sir, nice work. Sir, just I'm curious about, because I have not seen this procedure. After you have done the coagulation, sir, do you think that it is good practice to install a dye and see for any free leakage of dye under a fluoroscope?
I don't think so. It is very clean. It is very clean.
Okay. Right.
It looks very clean because on this D3, you can see there is a little bit of still the lesion was remaining little bit. And we have cauterized that and we have removed that also after the remaining part was left behind. So it was not like that. We can see perforation on endoscopy because with the high definition endoscope, and immediately patient will have this pneumoperitoneum. and we do all these difficult procedures in CO2 inflation. All these difficult endoscopy should be done.
Can I come in?
Yes, Siddesh sir.
Yes,
Please.
sir. Yes, sir.
I think I should first congratulate Dr. Sanjay Bhai for such a wonderful demonstration of a very difficult polypectomy, sir. That is my first comment, sir. Number two, see, the method of endoscopic removal of polyp has evolved over so many years, from simple polypectomy to now other different advanced techniques because of the available gadgets. One of the gadgets which Dr. Sanjay sir has shown is the application of endoloop earlier to have a better control on the polyp manipulation as well as hemostasis.
Yes.
So the other things which you mentioned as clips have given added edge to endotherapy for polyps, sir, and also for other management. But regarding the question of perforation, how do you recognize? It is very easy because when you are doing pneumo, carbon dioxide being continuously insufflated, the C-arm image will show the gas getting leaked out. The image can be whatever is there, previously existing image, and the gas in the retroperitoneum will definitely delineate the kidney shadows much better. So people can identify the gas leak. So that is one of the way how early perforations can be, even a small perforations can be
So the most important
detected.
part is these procedures are done in conscious sedation. So
Correct.
the moment the perforation occurs, within 5 minutes, patient starts moving.
Yes.
So that
Shoulder
is the
pain
first
also,
sign when
and
you
also
should,
distension.
you should think that you have done something wrong, because patient is sedated very careful, very silently, and suddenly if patient starts moving, then there you should suspect that there is something abnormal has happened and you should look for.
Yes, thank you, sir. And only one more word, because I was not able to speak on the endosono on that time. Is such a large polyp and angiolipoma which you are suspecting, it could be a vascular lesion. If the available in a institute, GA institute, you are planning for an advanced endotherapy, if you have a availability of endosono,
Sir, we
that
have
will
already
help
done, we
before-
have not shown the, because I could not find it
No,
yesterday.
sir. Just adding
We have
to
already
the
done the
point
EUS
of
on
learning.
that, because on that day we also suspected there is something else. So we did
Yes, sir. Yes,
EUS
sir.
on
Yes,
that
sir.
day, but yesterday because of it was very busy schedule, I could not find out
Correct.
the
No, sir.
video.
I'm just telling for the sake of learning.
Yeah.
So just adding a point, endosono with a Doppler facility added, if it is existing, can help to localize a vessel into the polyp. If you know the site of the vessel, one can easily, I mean, you can plan out your strategies well in advance.
Yeah,
This
because
is
it was
one more point.
hypervascular on EUS, we advised loop placement. Otherwise, we would have removed without loop.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Dr. Siddesh, I would like to say a few points here. The issue is that we are handicapped as a civil hospital. We do not have a GI medicine department. So practically, Dr. Sanjay, though he is in a private, is our extended arm. So every time we need him, every time he helps us out. So he had done US, even we said there is no need. He was very sure that I would like to see what is the level of vascularity, and then only. And then he phoned me, sir, this can be removed by snare. But I said, no, I would like to have a biopsy report because I am not sure, because that's why we have kept this.
That's fine.
That's the reason. But yes, he must have, he does it. And this time with his help, we have been one dissertation on that also.
Fantastic.
Okay.
I think we should really complement the hybrid module you have at local level, which for the benefit of the patient, also for learning. I think mutually it is beneficial, sir.
Yes.
Very good.
So we are ready to help all poor patients anytime,
Fantastic.
anywhere. So we never say no to any patient who is needy patient and who requires whatever intervention they require. We will do it free of charge if it is 100% needed.
Okay. There was one question I asked him before snare procedure. Will you retrieve the specimen or not? So what are the chances that we lose? I think you remember it.
Yes, sir. Most of the time we can retrieve immediately, sir. But even if it goes beyond that, we can remove it with small bowel endoscope.
Okay.
So losing this big polyp is very rare chances, sir.
But I was worried because I wanted a complete histopathological diagnosis. Just removal of snare, but snare was not okay.
Yes,
so
sir.
that was the one addition question I put. And retrieval if possible is that. So was there any difficulty in retrieval of the specimen?
You have to retrieve it with the snare, or you require a big net, 3 centimeter big net, which can catch at
Rock
least
net
half,
basket.
half of the polyp.
Even if you
rocknet
don't,
basket.
even if you cannot retrieve it, like if it's suppose it's a last thing, I think you can just let it, leave it, and the next morning stools, you can ask the patient to be careful with the stools.
And
and-
most of the time it will come, but sudden if it does not come next day, what the
Always give a-
the endoscopist, the surgeon, as well as the patient will not pass a flectus also. All three will remain in constipation.
No, that was the real issue with me.
Yeah.
Because from beginning I was thinking of malignancy. That was the basic difference. Though the radiologists were very sure, and even our endoscopist was sure, but that was the retrieval I was very concerned. But that should be kept in mind for beginners, that yes, retrieval is possible and it should be done as much time as possible. Apurva?
Yes, sir.
Sir, anybody would like to, sir?
Daivan? Is he there? Daivan? Any comments?
Sir, I want to ask that this, after the studying, there was a base that remains. And we know that the lipoma origin is not from mucosa. It must be some submucosal origin, or it may be from muscularis. So although it's a benign, what are the chances of recurrence? Although it's old age, and I think so it's minimum chances or negligible.
That is why follow-up is necessary. You have to do it after 1 year, and if it is required, then we can repeat it later on. That is why we call the patient after 1 month.
Yes, we have already done that.
Yeah, just to make sure that it is not recurring, or there is still something is left behind, we can remove it.
So that is the one more point well taken, that regular follow-up is necessary with even with benign lesion. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay.
So, Amri?
Sir, we went for the biopsy of the specimen, which was suggestive of sections of the structure of small intestine with normal mucosa and underlying circumscribed tuber with the histology of angiomyolipoma. So the pathology section will be discussed by Dr. Kesha and Dr. Roma Patel, ma'am.
Yeah, Dr. Kesha?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay.
I think Dr. Gulwan has come probably.
Yes,
Gulwan
sir.
Is it going okay, sir, for you? Is it okay?
Yeah, I am joining for a while because we are working in our office and for some briefing. Anyways, I cannot take much part in discussion. Sorry
No problem, sir. You are always with us.
I am here.
Yeah. With his blessing, this one. Okay, please continue, Kesha. Okay.
Kesha?
Good morning, sir. I'll be discussing the clinico-pathological correlation regarding this case. As my fellow colleagues discussed initially, I'll discuss about the specimen that was labeled as duodenal polyp and discuss further. The gross findings of this specimen was one polypoidal grayish-brown soft tissue structure was received, measuring 4.5 into 1.9 into 1.8 centimeter cube. The outer surface was grayish brown, and there was mucosa identified at one end. The cut surface was solid and firm, and there was grayish areas with it was grayish white with brownish areas present at areas. We can see the inside picture of the cut surface. The microscope, looking at scanner view, we can see the section of small intestine with normal mucosa. This is the normal mucosa, submucosa, the inner circular, outer longitudinal muscle, and the tumor beneath that, containing a lot of adipose tissue and proliferating blood vessels. Coming to the low power view, there are presence of 3 components which we can identify. There's benign stromal component which contains spindle-shaped cells. There's presence of mature adipose tissue, and there are dilated blood vessels which are present, and there is a stromal component present around the blood vessels which we can appreciate. Coming to 20x magnification, we can again see that there is a presence of spindle-shaped cells present around the blood vessels and also present in between the blood, in between the adipose tissue.
And this is the high power view of the same, and we can appreciate it well that there are presence of spindle shaped cells around concentrically arranged around the blood vessels. So we gave a differential diagnosis for angiomyolipoma and angiolipoma and had asked for IHC. So the angiomyolipoma is basically made up of three components: mature adipose tissue, spindle-shaped cells present around the blood vessels, and interspersed areas of spindle-shaped fibrous tissue which are present. And the second differential was angiolipoma. It is a variant of lipoma. There's presence of mature adipose tissue. There's proliferation of blood vessels. The diagnostic sign is fibrin thrombi, which is present, and interspersed areas of stroma are not significantly seen as seen in this picture. Previously, we could see it better. Coming to the immunohistochemistry, we managed to get the pictures from the patient's slides from GCRI, and we can appreciate that this is HMB45 negativity, and then actin was nuclear positive in the GCRI report. Whenever there is actin nuclear positivity, it is not considered as positive. There should be the presence of cytoplasmic positivity to call it positive. So this is also negative. So both the components being negative, the angiolipoma was favored, because HMB45 and actin, whenever there is presence of both the components, it is typical of angiomyolipoma. But since both of them are negative, it can be called as angiolipoma was more favored. And coming to it, as I said before, HMB45 is negative and it shows nuclear positivity. The angiolipoma was more likely. Gastrointestinal angiolipomas are rare benign tumors which can present as overt or occult bleeding and arise from anywhere between esophagus to rectum. According to American Journal of Gastroenterology, only 5 duodenal angiolipomas have been reported, and yet there is no propensity for local recurrence or aggressive behavior that has been reported till date, sir. Thank you.
Roma Ben? Yes.
Yeah. Sir, angiolipoma, I have seen this is the first case in the duodenum, third part and fourth part. The gross picture will also show some brownish area that may correspond to the vasculature. And when we see under the microscope, it is a submucosal lesion which predominantly showing the lipomatous component, but there is definitely in between proliferating vasculatures. As we know, the angiolipoma we see in the soft tissue very commonly, and in soft tissue side, the sign of the angiolipoma is a painful. When we do the FNAC from this lesion, just patient have a very cramped pain. So we just thought, okay, this may be a angiolipoma, but in GI side, there is a bleeding is the sign of the angiolipoma. So there is another features we like in the histopath, the fibrinous ball within the vessel, which is a characteristic features of the angiolipoma. The close differential is angiomyolipoma. The angio means it is related to blood vessels, myo is related to the smooth muscle, and the lipoma will give as a adipose component. And the angiomyolipoma is a form of Picoma families. So there is a characteristic melanocytic marker will come the positive, but in this case the melanocytic marker like HMB45, which is negative. So we just render the diagnosis angiolipoma rather than the angiomyolipoma. And it's a benign tumor. There is no propensity for local recurrence or aggressive behavior has been not reported in the literature. Anything else you want from me, sir?
Sir.
Any questions? Dr. Mukherjee?
Madam, in contrast to, though I know that sarcomas are extremely rare, GISTs are much more common. How do you differentiate a leiomyoma and angiomyolipoma and a sarcoma or a bowel wall sarcoma, not a GIST?
Okay, sir, in morphologically, the sarcoma has a different game of ball, because in sarcoma, we just look how was the pattern, whether it is intersecting, it is cellular or paucicellular, how was the pleomorphism is there any areas of necrosis or that. So the sarcoma is very easy to diagnose and histologically, and then we do the immunohistochemistry. If the sarcoma we feel morphologically it is a smooth muscle origin, we apply the H-caldesmon, SMA and Desmin stain. If we feel it is a liposarcoma, we do the S100 and MDM2. If we feel it is rhabdomyosarcoma, then we use the myogenin and Desmin as a skeletal muscle marker. So the sarcoma, if it is a high grade, then we can easily diagnose and put on the category wise by the with the help of immunohistochemistry. If leiomyoma is a smooth muscle cell origins, and there is a in leiomyoma also there is a different type like a angioleiomyoma. So along with that, there is a smooth muscle marker will come positive and vascular marker will come positive. So the ISC will definitely help to categorize the different sarcoma as well as the benign mesenchymal neoplasm. The GIST we will diagnose when we will apply the CD117. That is a c-kit marker. And if there is a c-kit negative GIST are also there, but we will diagnose by using the DOG1 and CD34. So GIST by immunohistochemistry we can easily diagnose the gastrointestinal stromal tumors.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Very recently, we have removed one 12 centimeter long esophageal fibroadenoma, fibroadenoma, 12 centimeter long, with patient having mild dysphagia only. So I think I have sent it to one of Julie resident. If she can share a picture of that.
Julie, do you have it? I think
Just now I have sent, sir.
Okay, let us see, because the uploading will be difficult.
You can see on this screen.
Oh.
I think you can, sir, you can share it if you want. You can share it from
हमारा
your
मोबाइल
laptop,
में
sir.
है, मोबाइल में है.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
This was from upper esophagus up to the G junction.
Oh, great.
12 centimeter long lesion. So we have to apply the innovative technique. આપણે જે રીતે ગાળીઓ બાંધીએ ને એ રીતે અમે દોરો છેક નીચે લઈ જઈને we have put a thread with the double channel endoscope. We can go below the polyp. We removed it from the mouth and then we put a ગાળીઓ બાંધીએ ને જે આપણે ભેંસોને
Noose. Noose, you call it noose.
The lesion was so big that normal endoloop could not go around.
Okay.
પેલા દરજીને ત્યાંથી પાક્કો દોરો લઈને આવ્યા હતા. Could bring a long thread from one of our stitcher and then we could apply it around the outside and then we could guillotine it and then we removed it after half an hour.
Okay.
Sir, there was a question for you, Rajput sir. Can you elaborate on the viscose clip? I think Dr. Siddesh has asked. I mean, what was the exact name? The clips that you apply for perforation.
Ovesco clip?
Yeah, Ovesco.
Ovesco is a wonderful thing because they have changed the management of perforation during endoscopy and the bleeding, acute bleeding. We have done around 56 clips, around 20 for perforations and rest for the bleeding, acute severe bleeding from upper GI or lower GI. It is a claw-like clip which goes over the lesion and you suck the lesion like a band. Whenever you do a bending like bending, you suck the lesion inside and apply the clip. And with the large also, you can do the perforation closure with the help of this Ovesco clip. We can do clipping, perforation, clipping around 1.5 centimeter to 2 centimeter also. Actually, I can show you the perforation and clipping.
Dr. Prabal, do you want to ask something or anything?
If you can see the, this was the lesion. Thank you, Julie. This was the lesion which we removed 12 centimeter long from the esophagus. It's a big lesion. It took almost half an hour just after cutting to remove. Half an hour to remove from the esophagus side. We have to apply an overtube.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, I can share you the video on my phone if you can see. For the Ovesco which you are asking.
It will be difficult. It will be difficult to see.
Yeah, it will be difficult.
It will be difficult.
I think I can see on my screen.
Oh, yes. It is seen, but not very clearly.
You will see. You will be able to see the duodenum. This was the perforation. You can
Yes,
see the.
yes, very well seen.
Yeah.
And this is the Ovesco clip, which was applied over the endoscope. Once you reach near the lesion, you can suck the lesion and then the perforation is closed immediately.
Yes, it is very well appreciated. We can see.
Yeah,
Yes.
you can see that the clip is applied and immediately within 1 minute you can close the perforation. And then the ERCP was completed. This was done after the clipping. Just immediately after clipping, we could complete the ERCP. So there was no leak even during ERCP. So this is so strong clip that it will allow you to perform the second procedure after the perforation also.
Sir, what is this clip made up of? Titanium?
Nitinol, sir.
Nitinol. Okay. And sir, after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, is it sloughed away from the mucosa or does it remain in the place?
It's a full thickness clip. It takes the seroja also because we are using it for full thickness resection of small tumor also. We do perforation deliberately. If lesion is around 1 to 1.5 centimeter, we can do NETs. We can do perforation in the stomach. We take out the lesion and then we close with these clips.
Okay.
It's a wonderful thing.
Wonderful thing. Sir.
In this case, Dr. Rajput, excellent, very well done, of course. In this case, when would you have referred it to a surgeon?
From last 2 years, no.
In this case, suppose what would be the indications of referring it to a surgeon? You had a small
If we would have not seen on the endoscopist, we would have not performed this procedure. It would have definitely gone to surgeon.
No, even after endoscopy, suppose when would you
Most
say
of
that?
the time, if you see on endoscopy, 99% of the time there is no signs of peritonitis unless it is in a colon. In colonic perforation, immediate perforation, you may have some peritonitis. And in that
I think Dr. Prabhu, you are asking about this case, I think.
I am asking about this patient.
About he is asking about angiolipoma, not about the perforation.
For angiolipoma perforation.
No, I am asking about the angiolipoma case.
Angiolipoma, we will not.
Just a minute, sir. There is a question. Like you had a small base, you had a pedunculated lesion. You could confidently say that you could do this polypectomy or stair polypectomy. When would you have thought that no, this is not possible by endoscopy?
Yeah, with availability of clips, Ovesco clip, we will never send.
Sir, shall I come in?
Yes.
Even if
Prabal sir, Prabal, permission.
There is active bleeding.
Can I comment, Prabal sir? Prabal sir, can I comment, sir?
Yes, please.
Sir, my point is, if the polyp, any duodenal polyp, even if it is large, if it is sessile, I would be a little hesitant, number one. Yes. Number two, when it is very close to the duodenal papilla, I think these are the two lesions and it is very vascular. So I would hesitate to do an endotherapy. Of course, Dr. Sanjay is more confident of handling vascular lesions with his gadgets. But these are the situations where I would hesitate to do endoscopically. A sessile wide-based polyp.
Lesion we can do.
Number two, when it is very close to the papilla, because the possibility of damage to the distal bile duct and the sphincter, and then of course vascularity. Three things.
Dr. Sanjay,
Periampullary lesion is not a contraindication. No. If it is just at the ampulla, then subject for surgery. Periampullary lesion you can remove with ESD, not a contraindication.
Okay. Siddhesh Ramanujan, hello.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Sir, is there any upper limit for sessile polyps to be tackled by an endoscope? Say even in the colon or in the duodenum or in the stomach. Is there any upper limit that as an endoscopist you stop that no, this is going to get to a surgeon?
Pedunculated or sessile?
Sir, sessile. Pedunculated, no problem.
For ESD, if it is not showing any malignant potential, or it is not showing any signs of malignancy or deep invasion, size does not matter, but the location does. If it is in the cecum, there are more chances of perforation. But if it is in the rectum, size does not matter. Even 10 centimeter, 12 centimeters sessile polyp can be removed with the help of ESD. So size does not matter in left side, while in right side it definitely matters.
Sir, does vascularity matter? Because some people will like to do
Sessile
endoscopy.
polyp, usually they are attached to the wall. So most of the time vascularity does not matter in that case because you are doing it submucosally. And you can control the bleeding submucosally. You can make a tunnel. With the help of this tunneling technique, you can control almost all bleeding.
Sir, in this, so basically then in a sessile polyp, you would probably not do a snare, but maybe an EMR. Are you talking about an EMR?
Most of the time
ESD.
ESD, sir. ESD, sir.
ESD.
Yeah, you want to.
Sir, what has happened today? The endo procedures for removal of polyps, it has gone to another level, sir, with the invention of newer technique called as tunnel surgery, tunnel endoscopy. So that was first started with doing this for achalasia. Now it has extended to all the lesions in the GI tract, wherever is accessible, even including colon. The problem with colon is it's the thin-walled lesion. I mean, thin wall of the colon is one restriction, but people have done extensively even tunnel surgery even in colon now.
Yes.
But I think it is a different level of learning. There are centers for training and people have to go to that level. It needs a lot of time and training under supervision.
It should be done on the day where you have a time of 3 or 4 hours or at least 6 hours. ESD, because it should not be done as a part of daily procedures.
It is a different level of skill itself, sir.
Yes, yes.
And one has to go through the evolution of skills like any other endoscopic procedure or laparoscopic procedure. When you switch over from doing only appendicectomy to cholecystectomy, then to hernia, like that, it is a different level of skill one has to evolve for tunnel surgery. So, and also another thing is it is very costly.
That is why now the chances of group practice are more, and one person is doing upper GI colon, ERCP, other person is doing ESD poem. That time is coming. So not a single person can do all these things. So you have to have
even to do one procedure, you may require a help of another colleague because lot of gadgets needs to be handled and they need to be interchanged. So that may also require a help of one of your colleagues. So that is also there, sir. So I agree. Now the evolution of newer techniques also require combined procedures like more
and
people.
Always a surgeon on back of you.
That is the reason, sir. So
Thanks.
surgeon.
I think we are no more required. I thought so.
No, sir. Pankaj bhai.
Yes,
because a competent surgeon like Pankaj bhai is back of endoscopist, they can do boldly procedure. They know Pankaj bhai is there to cover us endoscopy.
Okay. Thank you, sir. The point is that I think we should go back to our own. Right. Amrit.
Sir, now come for the how to take follow up this case, whether any further treatment is required or Horschner polypectomy is enough, and what is the role of repeat endoscopy. Sir, we admitted the patient 1 month later, and the patient's hemoglobin was 10.4, RBC was 3.9, hematocrit was 30%, WBC 6,800, platelet 3,25,000, and the repeat UGI was normal, sir. There is no recurrent polyp or recurrent lesion is present and no sign of any hemorrhage.
Okay. Sir, anybody would like to say anything? I think. Yes, sir. Yes, Dr. Ramanuj, please. You wanted
Sir, I think that, sir, a case well managed, and you guys really deserve a big credit because it was really a tough thing for any surgical group to enter into that part of the duodenum. So managing it endoscopically and with a team effort, I think the best part of your whole management is the team effort that you had. Really a big congratulations on the management, sir.
Okay, thank you. Prabal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Very well done, Team Ahmedabad. And I congratulate you. As Ramanujit said, I don't want to repeat it. It's a difficult area to go in. It's like going into tiger country.
So,
did well.
Yes. Sir, what I wanted to do this, just wanted to show, because as we as a surgeon know it, this area is always a gray zone for all of the surgeon. Because you cannot do enough in this area unless you do very massive surgery. For even a benign lesion, we are afraid to do anything. And this is a really good way to tackle such cases. And that's why I wanted to, and there was a big help from a radiologist. They were very confident that it is a benign lesion. Pathologists also help, and obviously endoscopists. So just it is a new way of presentation we have decided. We have done quite a few at our college, but we wanted to share with everybody. So that's why we have taken it there. If there is any, Akhil, you can give a suggestion what we can do more for such further case. Because this kind of
any inputs?
Sharing our knowledge will help others also that this can be done very well. Yes. I think so. If there is nothing, I think Apurva. Yes.
Yes, sir. I would like to thank all our guests to have joined on Sunday morning for this elaborate PG teaching. We'll leave for the day then, sir. For now, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Sanjay bhai, thank you. Roma Ben.
Thank
yes.
you. Thank you.
Okay. Pathology and radiology part. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Pankaj bhai.
Okay.